A significant number of children are exposed to violence in their homes, schools, and communities. WIFR reporter Alyssa Kelly talks with professionals about the prevalence of human trafficking and domestic violence in Rockford.
For those of you who are sitting, would you like to change your mind and return to the relationship? And for those of you who are standing at this point in time, would you like to leave?
Educators in the Rockford Public Schools tackle some tough topics in a two-day summit, including domestic and sexual violence in our community.
We really just wanted to expand the reach. Over 7 years, we've been able to accomplish so much, and we've watched this grow and really take root in the community. Again, that touch point with youth is so important, and if we can equip the staff that are working with them, we're going to really make a difference.
We also talk about red flags and things to look for and things that are healthy and unhealthy relationships.
It's organized by the Mayor's Office of Domestic and Community Violence Prevention. The educators leader what resources are there to help them. Kelsey Hart with the Family Peace Center explains domestic and sexual violence can occur in anyone and at any time, and it is common, even among our children.
Domestic violence occurs in every precinct across the city of Rockford. Research from Rockford Police Department shows that is the truth.
Hart says regardless of where kids come from, they can be experiencing this type of violence, and educators are on the front line.
I don't think we can underestimate the power of an educator in a child's life. It just takes one supportive adult to support a kid who's going through a traumatic experience.
In Rockford, Alyssa Kelly, WIFR News.
The event also featured a resource hallway featuring 15 different organizations like Rockford Sexual Assault Counseling and the Family Peace Center to give more information to those who attended.